So cool, we're live. Hi guys. Let me. Hi guys. Oops. Sorry, I don't mean to like.
What's up, guys?
Hi.
Anybody leave a free water bottle?
Yay!
Yay!
Oh my God, yes.
We got everybody else. We're live on YouTube. Hi. Okay, we're gonna wait probably about another 5 minutes or so, and then we'll start the presentation. I think people are still coming in and getting organized. So let me go ahead and share the presentation with you.
I don't know. That really, yeah. I was very excited. Nice color choices.
Huh?
Nice color choices.
I know. I kept it.
It's all in alignment.
Hello. Hi. You're cute. You're pink.
Yeah, I'm back to pink. Yay. Needed to freshen up.
I just
You all
started the
good?
live feed. I think it's working. Yeah,
Awesome.
cool. So it is working.
Very cool.
Says we have 8 viewers right now.
Sweet. That's so exciting.
Yeah, so I'll present for a little bit and then open it up for discussion.
Sweet.
And then
Do you, I didn't bring any, but do you have like water or anything?
no, I'm good.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah. I feel like I need a microphone. Hopefully people can hear me. Well, oh, and then I think, yeah.
We didn't like really get to officially meet, but
I'm officially
officially, I know we have, but at the kickoff, it was like a whirlwind. I'm like, oh, you're the one that I haven't really got a chance to talk to you yet, so. All right. Well, I'm going to use the bathroom really quick.
Okay.
If that is okay, and then let people kind of keep filling in. But
Yeah.
let's do it.
And then I'm gonna have to figure out how to set the music. Okay.
Cool.
I figured out how to play music.
Awesome.
You know what's so crazy? Lisa Gio, she spoke at my launch party.
Yeah.
Her husband is a principal at Denver. We got our orders pictures taken on a Sunday, like a day before my interview. And she's like, no, it's a principal at Denver. It's like most random thing. Yeah. And she's a reference for me.
That's perfect. So like it cannot like stars cannot allow.
It must be meant to be that.
I hope so.
9 to 5 or we'll see. Hopefully I won't, but it's an opportunity as well. There's a really process of years. And there's a softball and volleyball team.
No, oh my goodness.
I just don't know. Everything everyone else. Well, I entered, I'm like, there's elevators. And then I'm like, oh, it's not going to finals. There's stairs. And then I'm like, oh my God, there's no
I should have brought my like
That's scary. We're just like, wow. That's rad. Oh, that's like, I never thought about doing Oh, it was a monthly when I really yeah, that's pretty cool. Freelancers.
Definitely
The most professionally dressed.
Like all black. Black color.
Yeah. You were colorless. Did I? All black is very artistic.
I left my glasses.
I was just saying, oh my God.
No, I just got the movies.
Yeah.
Cool. I just got like.
I can't see super far away, but not enough to wear them. But they make me conscious of it. I like to wear those like really early, like 70s, like really wide. Everything comes back. You have a busy day today? I'm getting really tired.
I'm okay if I'm like up and moving. You ready? Yeah. All right, guys, we're gonna get this started. Yeah.
Make sure. I want to make an intro.
Make sure I got the mouse over here. Okay.
Awesome. Hey guys, how's it going? Thanks for coming. Awesome space, right? Pretty cool. It is. It's this great little theater. Thanks to Kieran, who I think just stepped out to grab Melody, who was welcoming everybody and checking everybody in. I'll make sure to say thanks again to him. But Kieran is one of the portfolio mentors. Anybody here in his group? Awesome. Like to see it. And we are here today to see Katie Lord. Yeah. Anybody here from her group? Look at this like in the front. I love it. You guys are huddled all together, ready to take some notes. So this is awesome. Katie is going to be going through her tips on freelancing with pricing, right? Yes. And the logistics of that. And I know I'm really excited to hear more about it because who here feels like they suck at pricing themselves? Because I know I do. Just about everybody's hand raised, right? So I'm really pumped to hear about this. Yeah, Karen, you had stepped out, but I said thank you. So thank you for hosting and having us in your space.
Welcome to Flashpoint.
Yeah. What kind of stuff do you teach here?
Me or the school?
You personally teach.
Me personally? So I am the lead faculty of the Graphic Design Interactive Media program. So I teach everything from foundational courses, color theory, typography, Photoshop, Illustrator, identity development, package design, web development 1, 2, 3, experiential design, data visualization, you name it. So
holy smokes.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's a lot of stuff. Awesome.
It's fun.
Very cool.
As Melody can attest.
Melody is wrapping up, right? You're almost done with school.
Yeah. Almost.
Thank you for
5 weeks.
Exciting. Thank you for welcoming us all in and guiding people. So I'm gonna let Katie kick this off and get started, but I just want to say thanks. Thanks for being flexible and signing up because with each one of these events, we only have so much space, right? There's 125 people in the program, so that's why we have to do registration each week. So the next one in 2 weeks should house everybody, which is pretty awesome. We're going to Next Now, and that is a VR studio from what I know. Eric's the one running the shindig on that, but he's not here tonight to talk about it. But here, we're gonna talk about Katie, hear from Katie, and let you have it.
Great.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jen.
Awesome.
Okay. So let's just get a gauge right now to see where everybody's at. Does anybody freelance currently? They don't freelance at all, but maybe want to learn more, which is probably everybody else over here. Okay, so a pretty good mix. And then I have my group. So we've already met the first week. Hopefully this isn't too much redundant info, but what we'll be going through, I'll come back to this. This is my dog, Umka. She's in all my presentations. What we'll be going through is we're going to talk about freelance business 101s, productize services and how to create a 10-minute proposal process, freelancing tools. We're going to cover a little bit of sales and then also a little bit of marketing. And then we're going to wrap this up with a client role play and then some discussion, and everybody gets homework. Every single one of my sessions, everybody has homework. So to go back to this, so my group knows the story already. So I actually took that picture. I was on, so I went skiing with my husband. This is probably like 2-3 years ago now. And we get to the top of the mountain and I'm like, I maybe go skiing like twice a year if I'm lucky, once a year. We get to the top of the mountain, I see this sign, I'm just like, where did you take me? Like, why am I here? I'm stuck on the top of this mountain. And I was faced with 2 decisions. Right, so one was I could call ski patrol and they could take me on their snowmobile back down the hill, or I could actually try and ski it. And I think this is a really good analogy of in the world of being your own boss, where you can take the easy way out and just give up and call for help, or you can actually try and do it. And you know what? I did it. It was not pretty. I fell a lot, and but I made it down to the bottom of the hill successfully, or I should say mountain. And so I want you guys to stop being afraid of what could go wrong and get excited about what could go right, because that's exactly what it means to be a freelancer, especially in this day and age. She's a 2-year-old Samoyed, by the way. Follow me on Snapchat. That's all I post. So I've been doing my own thing since 2015. KatieLord.com, Katie Lord Inc. if you want to look me up on social. And then I'm also, which I'm going to talk a little bit, and which I also kind of mentioned with you guys as well, working on PointBook. So that's the whole point system, which I'm going to explain to you guys and kind of give you a 101 on how to use yourselves. Okay, and we have until 8, so if there are any like glaring questions, just feel free to jump in. I'm here to help you guys and answer your questions. And also, I should say, the only thing that I can do, like I've been doing this on my own since 2015. The only thing I can do is speak to you guys from my experience, and that's what all of this is based on, right? So we're going to cover a little bit of the legal side of things, which I'm going to warn you, I'm not a lawyer, but I can tell you from my experience what I know and what I've learned. So incorporating. So there are benefits of incorporating. So incorporating whether or not you are going to, when you fill out a W-9, are you giving them your social security number? Are you giving them an EIN? If you're giving them your social security number, that means you're working as a sole proprietor, which means, not that this would ever happen, hopefully never, if there were something to say go horribly, awfully wrong, and you are now like this is a super big expensive project and something happened where you're now liable for that project. If you are a sole proprietor, that means all of your personal assets are now liable too. So that's the primary reason why you want to incorporate, so that you can have your personal assets, if you ever get sued for whatever reason, your personal assets separated from your company assets. I don't know all the particular details between the differences of, like, you can become an S-Corp, you can become an LLC. I know there's like tax purposes. I think if you're interested in becoming or incorporating, those are those specific questions that you'd want to ask a lawyer or whomever that's going to help you out. I can tell you I'm an S-Corp. I believe that's for tax reasons. Can't remember why though. Also, some agencies require that you have an EIN. What that means is if you get hired on as a contract employee at an agency and they ask you to fill out their paperwork and they say, well, what's your EIN? What that means is they only want to work with entities, so specific businesses. And then what they'll also probably, if it's that type of company, they may also ask you about insurance. You may have to have a specific insurance, like $1 million indemnification business insurance. And that just depends on the company's different policies. So it may be required in some instances. Did I lose anyone so far? We're jumping right in.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Do you know how much it costs for you to become an S Corp? Do you remember?
It is not very expensive. I think it's maybe like $200, maybe $300 if you do it all. But yeah, it's really, honestly, guys, it's an expense that like you're investing in yourself. If you're going to take this seriously, you need to take your company seriously too. If it's a $200 cost to get your company officially set up so that you are not potentially going to be in a sticky situation where your personal assets could become liable, then just do it.
Yeah.
It's like, to me, it's a no-brainer. Same thing with invoicing. How many people use an invoicing platform now, like QuickBooks, HoneyBook? How many people request like via PayPal, only work for cash under the table? anything under $600, you don't have to get a W-9 for, FYI. Okay, so invoicing. As a freelancer, hey guys. As a freelancer, you are required to keep your own invoices. So that means you are required to, at the end of whatever your terms and agreements are with your client, to send them an invoice. If you are, and there's reasons for this later, where we're going to talk about independent contractor rights, but just make sure you're the one that's keeping track of your invoices and billing your clients for your invoices. There are differences between like contract to hire positions, or if you're working with, say, a recruiter versus just a normal, like, I found my own client and I'm freelancing on my own. All those situations are different, and we're going to talk a little bit about the different types of freelancers as well, where if you are maybe working with a recruiting firm or contract to hire, you may have something different in your contract where they'll just bill you, or they'll just like pay you every 2 weeks if it's long term. But if you are finding your own clients and freelancing on your own, you must send your own invoices. If you're not using an invoicing software, just do it. It makes you look so professional. It's super easy to keep track of not just your invoices, but also your business expenses. There's no reason not to use it. Instead of, making up your own invoice in an Excel sheet and sending them like XLS that you want them to like fill out and send back. It's just don't make it more complicated than it has to be. There's so much technology that exists out there today that's just use it to your benefit. On your invoices, be as specific as possible. So create different line items per task, right? So if I'm working on a brochure, a website update, and a logo resize, those would be 3 different line items. If they go back after I completed the first round of edits for the brochure, they want another round of edits, I'll add another line item, design edits round 2, and then I'll apply the number of hours for that edit. Payments terms are negotiable. I don't know if you know this. If a client is like, oh, well, we pay our contractors every 60 days. So payment terms, what I mean by that is when are you going to be receiving your check in the mail from your client? It can be anywhere from 15 days, it could be 30 days. And what that means is from the day that you invoice them, the client has 15 days, 30 days, 60 days to pay you back, to pay your invoice. So if they have an unreasonable payment terms, if they want to turn it into 60 days and be like, look, I have to eat this month, can you maybe like expedite this a little bit? Depending on the company, they're probably going to be like, sure, no problem. Like normally no one ever points that out. Thank you. Okay. Yeah. I am not a lawyer, so please, like I said, I can only speak from my experience on these things. And what that means for you guys is I highly suggest that you do find a lawyer if you are getting into large contracts that are going to be longer term, and you want to make sure that everything is, going to be in your favor for that contract. I highly suggest you find a lawyer just to review your contracts. I do have a contract that I can have my clients sign, like a long formal one. But in my personal experience, I have stopped using it because I created my own little agreement, which I'll show you guys. Just because and this is probably a separate conversation, pros and cons of actually using agreements when you're freelancing individually. So when I say freelancing, I'm always, in my instance, I'm referring to you found your own client, you're invoicing them, you're managing your own projects, right? I'm going to kind of exclude those who are contract to hire positions or working with recruiting companies who are titled freelancers. So always ask if you can show your work in your portfolio. If you have an agreement with a client and then for whatever reason, they're like, so you're working on a UX of a proprietary technology that you want to be able to show to future clients. Like, this is a really awesome opportunity, right? But then the client is just like, yeah, no, like, we have an NDA. This can't be disclosed with anyone. So what do you do then? You could ask, well, can I display it in my portfolio behind a locked screen? At which point you have controlled access who can see those files. And most of the time the client would be like, yeah, okay, that works for me. So then make sure that's updated in your agreement. Equity options. So this comes from, my background is in the startup world. And this is, I can tell you from my experience, I've worked for equity twice. Once was successful. The other one was horribly, awfully not successful. So I guess the only thing that I can say to that is if you feel that there's enough synergy, I hate that word, but I'm going to use it, synergy, between you and this potential client, that you guys are, that you think that equity usually pays out in a number of years, right? So it'll be 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. So if you think that you're working for equity now is going to pay out in the long term, number of years later, then go for it. Try it out, see if it works, or if the company gets sold. Otherwise, working for equity, specifically for startups, and I'm sure everyone's heard this story or heard of freelancers who get stuck. Oh, I did this for free. They guaranteed me the, I have a role play about this where you work for free and then this person's going to create the new Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and is going to be this new hit thing, and they're super excited about it. It's a startup, and of course it's not, right? But what are you doing? You're still working for free. And is the company going to go anywhere? No. So now you're putting in free work. You're not going to actually get anything out of it. So just keep that stuff in mind because these type of situations do happen. If you're a member of an incubator, there's potentially office hours where you can get legal consultation. I'm a member of 1871. And so with that, they have a whole slew of mentors available in office hours that you can book from a variety of different backgrounds, whether it be legal, marketing, tech, fintech. So there may be incubators or other programs available for you guys to at least inquire about and think about joining. Keep track of who you send W-9s to. So this happened my first year that I tried freelancing, and I say tried. I tried to freelance in 2013, and it went horribly, awfully wrong. And I was working for projects that were clients that were too little, for projects that weren't paying enough, and just basically begging anyone to be like, hey, please hire me. I'm a designer. I want to do design work for you. That's not the way you approach freelancing. I'm going to teach you how to approach freelancing now. Learn from my experience, okay? But what happened was you have like 15 different clients that you maybe sent a W-9 to and you don't remember. And when it comes time for taxes, you're like, okay, so who do I actually have to get like a 1099 in the mail from? And it was just really confusing. So just keep them in a folder if you do send them out, and keep track of them yourself. W-9s, you only have to send a W-9 if a project is over $600. And if you are officially incorporated and have an EIN, you're not obligated to send a W-9 because then you're working on an EIN. W-9 is for sole proprietors, people who are working under your own independent contractor. Or if you're a corporation, you're a corporation. Okay, independent contractor rights. I found this one to be fascinating. Particularly because there were probably, if I look back on the whole span of things, probably like 3 or 4 different clients that I could have claimed unemployment from that I just had no idea, right? So I'll just go through all of these. So you're not required to work on location. You're not required to use a company email. You are required to send invoices. Those 3 things, if you are a freelancer right now, working for a client where you're required to work on location, you're using their company email, and they're the ones that are just paying you every 2 weeks, in the eyes of the government, the IRS, you are a full-time employee. And so what that means is when you fill out the paperwork for unemployment after they terminate your agreement, you would be viewed as a full-time employee. What? I had no idea. There's a lot of nuances to this though. So you can, if you're in a situation where, say it is a longer term contract and they just all of a sudden drop you and you're like, great, now you're SOL, what am I supposed to do? Try and apply for unemployment and see what that, because there's a whole bunch of questions that you have to answer and see what happens. Because I know one of the other questions is if you are working on location for a client, they required you to show up and work from 9 to 5 p.m. That client is taking up the entire workday. So that doesn't allow you enough time in the day to work to find another client or even to work on another project. And so that's how they would view that for unemployment. Questions?
I have a comment about the legal stuff.
Yeah.
Verbal agreements also count. So if you make a verbal agreement and then they try to go back on it in like an actual written contract, like you have legal recourse for that. So.
I would say make sure you have everything written down and signed, period.
Yes, I mean that too.
Yes.
I did this too, and it was a whole big thing.
Yes,
But it
even
does count if you do make that.
yeah. So yeah, I would suggest no verbal agreements. Make sure, even if it's just an email saying like, hey, I agree to put in 20 hours at this hourly rate, and they're just like, great, sure, like let's start this on Monday. Like that's an agreement in an email, you know. So then you have proof that you were hired to do this project and complete X, Y, Z. And then there's the opposite side of things where if you don't actually complete X, Y, Z, but you're still trying to bill them for work, then they're like, well, like, why am I going to pay you? You didn't complete the project. And it gets really hairy really quickly, especially when you're dealing with things like that, with contract agreements and scopes of work. And what do you do if you, and I'm sure everybody has had scope creep on a project. Yeah, it happens all the time. We're nice people. That's what happens. You know, you end up being too nice and you're like, sure, I'll just do that one more thing for you. And the next thing you know, you're like 10 hours over project and you're not making any money if it's a project cost, or you're charging them too many hours if it's hourly rate. Or you have to go back and renegotiate the terms and agreement section of your contract for the scope of work to expand it or whatnot. And it just gets super complicated. Which is part of the reason why I came up with my whole productized services with the point system, because it kind of answers or addresses those two things, the project cost and the scope of work. Yes?
Just because we were just on that topic, I had a situation last year where a client actually stopped responding to me to try and finish a project. Like I had done 2 rounds of revisions and they never got back to me to do the 3rd round. Luckily, I sent an invoice at the end of the year just saying I was like looking through my books, realized I hadn't gotten paid for the work and they paid me, but I didn't expect to be paid, honestly. So I don't know what your recourse is in that situation when you're trying to finish a project but they won't.
So I charge up front for all my projects.
Okay.
So I stopped putting myself in that situation altogether. That's not always an option, depending on the client. I mean, I'd hate to say it, small claims court.
Right.
You know, there's really just there's no easy option for that. There is, I mean, I've heard of places where you can like fill out like collections online and like they'll send you an official looking letter to the client to like try and get the money, but then they keep a percentage of it. It just gets weird. Just charge up front and don't put yourself in that situation.
What do you exactly charge for? Like you say you're going to do the job and
Mhm.
for what it is.
For my onboarding process, so I guess actually what's next? Freelancing tools. Let me answer, because I'll answer a lot of these questions in a little bit. I don't want to get too far ahead. Yep, this is it. This will answer your question. Okay, so freelancing tools. So if you are a beginner freelancer, or even a professional, like full-time freelancer, always have a project management process. So I want you to think about what to do with a client when things go off track, what you're going to do about client communication, how you're managing your tasks, because this can't just be like, you can't go up to a client, and this is where I went wrong the first time in 2013, where I'm like, please hire me, I need the money. No, okay, a client, I'll hire you for $300 to do this project. Thanks. And then silence. Like nobody, like I didn't know what to do next. Like, what do you do next? Like, do you initiate the phone call? Is the client going to send you info? If you wait to hear from the client to send you the info, then you may never actually hear from them. So this all falls into the category of project management. So this is my actual project management process that I have in my proposal. So before we start, your project is assigned a number of points. Based on your timeline and expectations for deliverables. We can also, the points are based on how you want to prioritize your tasks. After you purchase your points, we create a project timeline based on your goals. So, and then we'll also have a once weekly Scrum call. You'll have full access to your working files. And then in my project management tool, I use Teamwork, which I have a sign up link in the corner here, FYI, for anyone who's looking for a project management tool. It's fantastic. It works wonders with my point system. So they can log on and view my tasks or my task list, so there's never a question of what I'm working on and when. So the way this works with clients is, and why it took me so long to learn and figure this stuff out, is managing the client's expectations. That's what this is all about, client communication. And so if you are working, say, for on a smaller project, which you maybe have to turn around relatively quickly in order to be profitable on, you have to manage the client's expectations for that, right? They're obviously you're going to treat them very different from how you would from someone who's, say, a blue chip client. And all of that is done through your project management process. Meetings. So how to run a meeting. How many people think they know how to run a meeting right now? Okay. You probably all have some sort of like consultation experience in the background then. So before every single meeting, so not only are you having a weekly Scrum call, so Scrum call is based on agile development. Am I losing anyone? So it's like in rugby where everybody comes together and they huddle and they have like a 30-second conversation. I'm going to do this, you do that, you do this. Okay, done. Let's go play. So I have those once a week. A meeting is separate from a Scrum call. A meeting is something that I put for an hour on the calendar. If you put it for an hour and then 10 minutes early, your clients are like, I love you. I can go get a cup of coffee now. But for every single meeting, say it's for a design review for a project, prepare impact questions. And so a lot of this is just based on like they could be creative direction questions. They could be, how does this, like if it's for branding, or how does this logo make you feel? Like what do you see in this design? Prepare those type of impact questions because those are going to create conversation with the client. Especially doing something that's creative. I'm sure maybe this is like, hopefully I don't have to like tell you this. You guys all know this info inherently if you're working with a client for the creative process, but it could also be for like technical things too. So I learned a long time ago, if you're meeting in person, to bring candy, just because who doesn't like to snack on something in a meeting? But then always bring candy to that client. Otherwise, they're going to be like, dude, where's the candy if you forget? Have an agenda for every single meeting. So for every single meeting, I'll be like, great, thanks for coming today. This is our second design review. After this meeting, I'd like to be able to achieve X, Y, Z. We are going to do this by, and then we're going to close the meeting, at which point I'm going to ask what their availability is for the next meeting for next week, and then send that calendar invite out as soon as we're done with the meeting. So this is, you guys are your own boss. You are the CEO of your company. This is what you have to be on top of. So many things just get lost in communication, and it's so easily avoidable if you just manage their expectations. Yes?
Can you repeat those steps again?
Well, this is so agenda. So add your intent. So we are meeting here today because of XYZ. We design review. We are hoping to achieve, we're going to narrow our logos down from 3 down to 1 final option. We are going to do this by narrowing this down in conversation today, choosing a different track, design track that maybe you feel resonates the most with you. And then at the end of the meeting, you're going to close it out, thank them for their time, and then immediately schedule a follow-up. And then if it's your last meeting, if say you're ending a project with a client, send a thank you note. If not, a box of cookies. Okay, freelancing tools. So invoicing, legal, insurance. There was a question, someone asked about health insurance, which is tricky if you're working as your own boss. I only have one suggestion for that because I'm on my husband's insurance. Everybody has different situations. I know you can be on your parents' insurance until you're 26. Otherwise, there's really no other option to go on your own, which is annoying, especially in 2018. But there are organizations, and I don't know if the AIGA has like anything. I have no idea. They have a health exchange. You do? Yes, that's perfect. I will add that. Yeah. Huh?
The freelancers union? Yeah.
Freelancers union?
Really good,
Yeah. Yeah, so if you're a member of any of these organizations, maybe they have a healthcare exchange that you can join, so you don't have to buy your own fancy, expensive insurance plan.
I think Dribble just got like a freelance
Really?
thing too.
Yeah. So this is a thing. Yeah. So yes, good point then. Okay. So now to the fun part. We'll just keep going because we'll do Q&A at the end of this. Okay. So what are productized services? So productized services are services that are packaged, sold, and delivered just like products. And so we had a couple of group members from my last session where they eventually, so using a point system, you define all of your tasks, you group them into packages, and then you sell them as packages. And so there was a couple people that were like, they viewed it as like their services is like their menu, and you could like buy this type of sandwich, like the Reuben sandwich, and you get like this number of like design tasks with it. So you can get really creative with it. But there is a lot of information out there that exists for how to productize services. There's a classic like all website maintenance, like productization. You know, you're gonna sell that to clients, and then you're gonna have someone in like India go through and do all the updates for you. Which is fine. There's definitely a time and place for that, but not what we are. We are bespoke service providers. So you can do this by having a clear product offering, delivery, and follow through. And then why productize services? These are just a few of the points why, but it's made my life so much easier because I have taken hourly rate out of the conversation. I've taken project cost out of the conversation. It's just made my life so much easier. You're also able to work less and make more money because you're ultimately charging more for your packages. You automate your processes because the more time you do a package, the better you're going to get at it. And then I also have a 10-minute proposal process. So this is a process that all of you can go home and do. I'm assigning everyone this task, define services, so task number 1. I want everyone to go home, pull up a spreadsheet, list all of your services, and write detailed descriptions and approximate number of time to complete each. That's everyone's homework for tonight. Because, well, I just do design, I do everything, right? And then what does that mean though? Or you don't want to water yourself down so then clients don't know where to peg you, right? So if you're marketing yourself as a UX designer, but you also want to, I don't know, do like brochure updates, like those two just don't necessarily go hand in hand unless you have this particular reason to tie them together, which I kind of do through my website, but anyways. So you don't want to water yourself down too much, but I would just use this as your brain dump and like put down everything that you can charge. What can a client pay you to do for me? Or what can I pay you to do for me? If you think about it like that. Because I think you'll find a lot of different options. So once you do your list of services, we have to define what a point means to your business, both internally and externally. So internally, I say 1 point equals $100, which equals roughly my hourly rate. Externally, that means 1 point equals effort to my client. If they're really pushy and they're like, oh, I see you have a 25-point package, so $2,500. I'm completely transparent with all of my packages and pricing. You guys can go on my website and copy paste it for all I care. You can see everything because that's a lot of my conversations with my clients up front, where the first thing I ask is like, well, have you been to my website? And if they're interested in a website, I'd be like, have you looked at my website package? Because a lot of clients, you'll just get stuck in this like, oh, submitting like RFPs and you never hear back from clients and you just get stuck in this loop and it's really depressing. And versus I kind of use that as my vetting point because you don't want to have an hour-long conversation with a potential client that's never going to actually pay you any money in the first place. So that's why I put my points in my pricing online. So define what it means internally and externally. If you come up with some other way to explain it externally, great, let me know. I would love to learn. But in what that would mean, so for 25 points, I would say roughly that could equal anything from like 20 to 30 hours, depending on the type of work. Different tasks are assigned different amount of points internally, so that really just depends. Obviously, a UX design point would be applied internally differently than a production point where you're just doing a production change. So think about how you're going to define this internally and externally. Up next, you're going to do some service mapping. So mix and match your services to generate packages and define which can be formed together, standalone, or be sequenced. Okay. So I have 5 packages on my website. I start off with pitch presentation because part of my differentiating factor for clients is that I have spent the last 6 years in the startup world. I have helped clients achieve over $50 million in funding. I do this by starting off with them and creating their pitch presentation, right? So now I already did 3 things. I differentiated myself. I explained the value of the services that I provide. And now I'm going to take you on a client journey, right? Through my packages. So I kind of have like, we're going to like build our way up. So I have my pitch presentation package. So 8 points, $800. Sounds a lot for a presentation, right? It's just PowerPoint. No, it's not just PowerPoint. It's not just PowerPoint. I am speaking from my 6 years experience. I am speaking from my startups that I've worked at that have gotten successful $1 million of funding. So I'm consulting them on their content, on their organization of their pitch, the who, what, why, and how. And then they're not just getting one presentation, they're getting the presentation that they present with, the one that they email, the one that they snail mail. And then in turn also creating an appendix of slides that they can kind of add and remove based on the type of investor that they're pitching to, right? So that is the value behind an $800 pitch package, okay? And that's what I want you guys to start thinking about now. I'm going to set you up for this. Start thinking about the value that you can add into the services that you provide for your clients. Can be based on anything. Can be based, everyone has different experiences. Everyone comes from different industries. Just start thinking about what you can do. Okay, great. So now we have, oh, sorry. So I'll just go over my next packages after this. So once they get their pitch, their funding, now they have a little bit of money to spend. So now they're going to work with me. Now we're going to do their branding and identity, which is next, because it's all about building credibility in the marketing world, especially when you're starting from scratch as a bootstrap startup. After the branding and identity, then we're going to move on to the website. And then after the website, we can move on to user experience design and help them hone in on what their technology should look like. So those are my packages. You guys can see all of this online. So allocating points. So once you have your packages, you want to allocate each service or package a number of points. Then you're going to, for each package, generate your task list for those services and set tentative timeframes per task. So I have a 3-week branding and identity package. So 4-week branding and identity package. So my logo, we start off with logo design. So we start off with 5 logos. We have 1 design review once a week. And then the following week, we go down to 3 logos. The following week, we go down to the final logo. And then the 4th week, we spend generating assets and creating their, if they wanted a business card or an email signature or whatever marketing collateral. So, and then also define your terms. So depending on when you want to get paid, I charge upfront. Generally, my clients don't have a problem with that. In fact, they appreciate that. I have onboarded clients in less than an hour before, where from the time they pick up the phone and reach out to me, or I call them and they're like, great, I need this, let's do this, can you start today? And then I send over my proposal, which they then sign, and then I send them the invoice, which they then pay, and then we have our kickoff call, which we then define the tasks and then assign tentative due dates. Okay, 10-minute proposal process.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How do you manage your time if you have multiple clients? And then you promise every one of them that you're going to work on their project for 3 weeks?
That's your project management process. So there's obviously a max number of clients and min number of clients that you're going to try and have at a time. So you don't want to overbook yourself. You don't want to underbook yourself. But yeah, you also don't want to work yourself to death, where if the client is like, hey, I need a logo by next week, and you're like, okay, I think I can do it, because then you're going to have a logo design review every other day, and then the client's not going to get back to you because they're going to want to wait for their mom's feedback or something, and it's just, then you're not going to meet your deadlines. So you have to, that's all about managing your client's expectations and yours. If you know that you have a package that takes you 4 weeks to complete, that means that you can just work on Tuesdays and Thursdays for those 4 weeks, because you're going to put all your hours in on those 2 days, and then Monday, Wednesday, Friday can be on another project. You can start thinking of it as like not just points allocated per task, but even more like points and like booking your time. If you wanted to think about it like that. So it's like, great, I have a 5-point day for this, and then it could be like across 2 different projects. Do you know what I mean? Okay. How are we doing? Is everyone still with me?
I don't know if anyone else does this, but I found calendar blocking really helpful. And just breaking out each week, like I'll look at the due date, and then I'll look at, okay, what do I want to accomplish just for the whole week? So that I'm still flexible in the week. And then if I want to get even more tightly controlled with my time, I will put like, estimate the number of hours, and then literally put it on like a Google Calendar that I can hide and unhide. So I can see if there's any windows of time, or, on even that granular of a level.
Yeah, that works. Perfect. Okay, so You now have successfully productized your services by creating your task lists and your packages, and then defining what a point means internally and externally, and then also approximate timeframes for each of your packages. Now to create a proposal. So this is your template. You're going to have a cover page, an about page, samples of work page, how it works page, because you're using a point system. Some clients, if they're just seeing this for the first time, they're kind of like, oh, I don't know, do I really get it? Maybe. And then your packaged services. So for all of your packages, there's going to be one package per page. And then on each page, you're going to have your task list, which you've already generated for your packages, and then the number of points per package on each page. And then you're going to have your terms and conditions, and that's your final page where you're going to decide how you want to charge your clients. If you want to charge up front, if you want to charge 50-50, 50 up front, 50 on back. If you want to do 15 days, 30 days. I charge 15 days up front, and I haven't had any issues with it. Some clients, they may ask if they want to do 50-50, and that's no problem. I have no problem with that. But 10-minute proposal process, you already have this made. This is your package. So if you have a client that's interested in a branding package, as soon as you hang up the phone with them, export this as a PDF, email it to them, send them the proposal. You can get it to them in less than an hour, and they're just like, wow, she's really on top of it. That's part of the sales process. Questions about this? Yes.
So I'm just trying to think, like, let's say you had a website package, but a client, there's sometimes like one scrolling page, sometimes it's a 10-page in-depth website. How do you manage that, or do you have some sort of stipulation in the packages, like 5 extra points per page, or
yeah.
How do you handle that?
So think of your package for website specifically, think of it as a baseline to start the conversation. So all of my packages can be fully customizable. So I have my website package where you can get full 8 pages for $5,000. If they're like, great, I just want like a single page parallax scrolling. Okay, well, that's not quite half the work. So then you can decide, then you can explain to them the logic. It's up to you and how you want to define that. And you could even have like micro packages if you wanted. So like you could have a landing page package and define what that would be. So it's obvious because it would obviously be less points than a full 8-page website, right? So just as you're thinking about your packages, that's stuff that you'd be thinking about and how you want to handle those conversations. Being a bespoke service provider is challenging in the fact that every client is looking for something unique, but within the realm of the services that you provide, right? So if I have a branding and identity package where they for sure need a logo, and I typically throw in business card design and email signature, but instead they're like, could I have a 2-pager instead? Then that's something that I'm just like, sure, that's no problem. We can do that instead of creating these other 2 assets. Or if they want that in addition, then I'd be like, great, that's another 2.5 points. That's what's all defined in the kickoff call as well. So you're getting, and you can, if you know this going, and this is going to be in the discovery call with the client, where you're going to ask them these specifics about what they're looking for, because that'll allow you to, if you need to, make your proposal even more specific. Okay.
What's the 50-50?
50% upfront of the project. So $5,000, I'm going to charge you $2,500 upfront. And then once the project is done, AKA go live, $2,500 after that. Okay. Sales, let's talk money. My favorite part. Just kidding. No one likes to talk about money, ever. Okay, so this may surprise you, but there are different types of freelancers. Lots of different types of freelancers. I know, and I was the person that would work $20 an hour because just give me money, give me something, I'm begging, like I need anything. That puts you in the high risk category, right? So on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being low risk, 10 being high risk, working project to project on small projects and not charging a lot for them, that's super risky. Because now you're putting yourself in a position where you have to onboard a huge amount of projects every single month just to be able to pay rent. right? And then scalability, not so much. Like if you're stuck in the, oh, well, I have like 10 different clients, but all they just want is production edits, that's fine. Is that where you really want to be? So the longer you start doing this, the more you're going to be able to start answering those questions for yourself. And then, is the work challenging? So challenging is for the work. No, it's not challenging. I put this in the realm of like production, you know, if you're like swapping out logos or just ad sizes or whatnot. Reoccurring. So I would challenge everybody to try and put themselves in the reoccurring and then maybe even a little bit of the consultant realm of things, because it becomes a different conversation, right? When you are on a retainer with a client, and yeah, the retainer may be made up of smaller projects, but you have a set income that you know you're going to receive from that client per month. So now you're giving yourself a little bit more stability, and you're kind of understanding what the client's expectations are of you each month. So smaller projects reoccurring on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. These could also be larger projects. You know, if you're working on a UX design that's taking a period of weeks or months to complete for a client, then that would be applicable here. I'd probably push that more towards the consultant side of things, where you're going to be charging a lot more for your services. So you're adding a lot more value behind the services that you're providing. It's going to be for one or a few companies. Generally, if you are working on this higher end type of things, it might be more challenging to do it for more than one client at a time, just because there's a lot of work involved. But this is very low risk, very low risk in doing it that way. And then challenging, the work tends to also be a little bit more challenging because of the work, the type of work that generally pays a little bit higher, especially in the UX world. Blue chip clients. All right. I have a little sample for you guys. If everyone has a pen and paper, we're going to try this out. I was just thinking about how to phrase this. I assume everybody's gone through and like, oh, if I'm freelancing, I need to make XYZ dollars per month. Like, oh, wouldn't it be great to make this much money per month? And then each month happens and you're just like, oh, well, that was my goal. It didn't really work. So let's just think about the big picture here for a minute. Okay, let's pretend it's an ideal world. We're gonna have your ideal world meet your real world in this version. So what is your monthly revenue goal? How much are you charging for your average client? What's your hourly rates? For this sake, we're doing hours. We're not going to get involved with points because points could mean anything, right? And then the average number of hours per week. Okay, so in the example, say my revenue goal is $5,000 per month, but my hourly rate is $50. I'm going to divide those, and then I'm also going to divide it by 4 because there's 4 weeks in a month. And then that means that I have to work 25 hours per week in order to meet my revenue goal. Sounds achievable until your client average comes in. So your average client is paying you $500. So that means in order for you to meet your revenue goal, you have to onboard 10 new clients every single month. That is a lot of work. That's so much work. That would be a different story if your average client is paying you more. If your average client is paying you $1,000 to $2,000, say those are retainers that you've acquired, then you're on a different track. But I just wanted you guys to start thinking about what your hourly rate is, and then what your average client is. What are they paying you now? Because if you are to up your hourly rate, you're going to be working less hours per week. You only have to, say your client average, if you raise that to $2,500, you only have to onboard 2 new clients per month to make $5,000 a month. What? That's so easy. That's so achievable. That's so achievable. It really is, you guys. Because I want to challenge everyone in here. I don't even have to know what you're charging right now. I know it's not enough. I know it's not enough. Just update your pricing. Start now. Start now, because yeah, I know being a designer or a creative, it's something that's so personal, right? This is your brainchild. This is what you are putting on paper and in front of clients, or on the screen and in front of clients. And you kind of get stuck in that like, oh, I don't know, is this really worth it? Like, yes, it is. You are worth it. It's your time. People will take you as seriously as you take yourself, all the way from appearance to how you manage your meetings, to how you manage your projects, to how much you're charging. All of this stuff, I'm telling you, if you get this stuff lined up right, that's all adding value to the services that you can provide, in turn allowing you to charge more per hour. Okay, so where you want to be over here, this little graph on the right. So right at the bottom where your value is 0 and your price is $1 sign, that's the project. That's the project cost. That's where I think I tried and failed my first year to stick around, because I wasn't valuing myself. And it is a little bit of a confidence battle, especially if you're just starting or saying, challenging and building your portfolio, just getting out of school. You have to build the value behind what you're doing. So start thinking about what you can do for your services, and then also about how you can start decreasing the amount of time spent on each project. So that comes through the productization, where you're doing kind of all this like upfront organizational work in creating your packages and your proposal process, and displaying your pricing online. All of that's going to save you time in the long run. Who is way off here? Who had like 20 clients per month? Anybody? If anyone had the time to do the math. Okay, so a couple other points about pricing. I know this is primarily supposed to talk about pricing. Maybe you guys aren't really happy to hear that I'm not going to tell you, oh, well, for this number of years of experience, I suggest you charge XYZ number of dollars. For that, talk to recruiters. They'll have all of that to suggest for you, or you'll see it when you apply at groups like the creative group or whatnot. Freelancing on your own, no, charge more. So fear of pricing. So I was so scared of pricing that I created an entire point system. So I didn't have to talk about pricing. So you can too. Yeah, so and you know what, but you are a professional, and at the end of the day, like, you are getting paid for services, and it's up to you to be specific and ask for what you're worth, and not be afraid to ask for what you're worth, and not be afraid to always ask for more. Do not discount ever. There are so many situations where every single time I do a discount, even if it's for like a friend, I'm just like, oh, it's like, I've known this, it's my mom's friend. I've known her for 10 years. No problem. I'll just do this easy for her. No, it ends up not being worth the time or effort. Because then also, say they start referring her or other friends to you, which is great. You know, now you have a referral business, but now they're referring you at that lower rate, and they're not valuing the actual services that you're providing. And then I just told my group this last week, had a conversation with a potential client for a pitch presentation. And I have my pitch presentations where it clearly states like, this is for presentation only. And he was seeing the $800 and he wasn't understanding the value behind the services that I was providing. And as soon as we sat down and he saw that price tag, he's like, so could I be able to, do like a 2-pager, and then I have an ad that needs to be designed for this spec, and then we're thinking about doing some banner ads. So is that something that you think you could just add into this package? And no, I'm sorry, because let me tell you why. And I explained the value of my package, of what it means to work with him on his pitch presentation, so that it's not just like, you got a little bit of sticker shock. And that's also why I put my pricing online, because that does happen. Like not everyone is going to work with you. There's a time and a place for different types of clients. But as soon as if I were in that meeting, to be like, oh yeah, sure, like I really need this project, I'm just gonna add on this extra task for you, no problem. Then there's gonna come the next task, then there's gonna come the next task, and then the unlimited number of revisions. So like as soon as you start letting that waterfall, things get out of control really fast. But mostly it's behind the value of your services for why you should not discount. So be clear with rounds of revisions. If they push back too much, remind them about your contract agreement. So if I have a client who is looking for, say, for after each design review, we have 1 round of edits. And if at the next design review, they're like, oh, but can we also just do this one more thing? I'd be like, great, yes, I can. That's no problem. But like we discussed not that I told you guys this yet, but like we discussed up front, each additional round of edits is going to be an additional half point. So that's another $50. Is that something that you're comfortable with? Most of the time, they'll just be like, oh yeah, sure, no problem. Just send me an invoice. Other times, if they get like, if you don't tell them that and you don't communicate that, you're doing that work for free, or you're going to send them an invoice and they're going to be like, what's this for? Like, you didn't tell me this. Stop chasing bad clients. Stop chasing those project clients and begging for work. Start figuring out how you can get more blue chip clients, how you can start differentiating yourself. We talked about this. And then clients need to see you as a partner. And mostly that's, they need to be able to trust you to work with you. And so bootstrap startup world, all about building credibility, right? Do they have a solid, do you have a good looking website? How does your brand look? What other types of work do you have in your portfolio? How can they view you as a trusted partner and believe that you are going to be able to be the designer for their project? Okay. Moving on to marketing. This is probably the most simple way that I know of to describe what marketing is. So I think a lot of people, even in clients, get this stuff mixed up, right? So advertising is we sell candles, branding is, or marketing is we make light, and then branding is this light makes me feel loved. I think it's important for us as designers, because I was just thinking about this on my walk with my dog this morning, that a lot of designers are tasked to design materials within these 3 items, within advertising, marketing, or branding. But then how can you do that successfully if you don't even understand the difference between them? I know I ended up getting my major in advertising creative design at North Park University over 10 years ago. And it was fine. They didn't have a design class or design course at that time. But that means I took a lot of business classes, and that was taught to me in my degree, versus I can't imagine now being a designer and not understanding the business of this stuff, and like even just the definitions of this stuff, but yet being tasked to design for these 3 different things without understanding. So just something for you guys to think about. We're going to kick it old school for the next couple slides, straight out of business school. 4 P's of marketing. So price, product, place, promotion. For our instances, product is service, because we are productized services. And I have this as a worksheet for everyone at the end of the class too. So you are not just a freelancer, you are a company. You are making $5,000 a month. You are legit, okay? So it's important for you to start thinking about how to answer these questions for yourself, on top of not just productizing your services. So what are you selling? What does your customer want from your product or service? So how can you sell to a client when you don't understand who your client is? Right? Find who your clients are, then you can start targeting them, and then you can start selling them. So that's what this exercise is supposed to start setting up for you guys. What are your features? What are your benefits? Those fall underneath the value category. How will people use your services? I think this next one is, where will they use your services? So that's a really interesting category or question, I think. Where will they use their services? So like, how are they how are they finding you? How are they reaching out to you? Are they reaching out to you from, say, well, I'm a member of 1871, so is it a startup that's reaching out to me? So that's my, like, that's where I'm getting my referrals from. Start thinking about this stuff. What will it be called if you wanted to like brand yourself as something, something else? Price. So price is not just about money, you guys. It is about the physicality, the emotional effort, the time put into it. Think about what are your competitors' prices, if you can find their pricing online, if possible. And then the value that you're providing to your customer. Is there demand for your product or service? The last thing that you want to do is put together this super awesome package and then not together another package that you know does make money. No big deal. How much time or effort should the customer expend to acquire it? What's their onboarding process? What's your project management process? How hard is it for you to take the client from I've never heard of Katie Lord all the way to I'm writing her a $5,000 check, Katie Lord? What does that process look like? Place. So where are they going to buy your product or service? So where are your customers shopping? Do they find you via social media? Is it a referral? Is it your mom's friend? How are they finding you? Where is it most convenient for your customers to reach you? I have, if you guys looked at my website, katielord.com, I have a calendar tool. It's actually through HubSpot that allows clients to book me for a quick 20-minute chat from my website. And 20 minutes is key because if it's any longer, then people have to look at their calendar and figure out where they have time. 10 minutes is too short. So 20 minutes is key, FYI, when you're requesting a new client meeting. But it's super easy to just book a time to chat with me. So that's why I've had clients book a time to chat with me, ask about a package, send them a proposal, get them signed up, invoice them, schedule a kickoff call. Super easy. Are your clients engaging in social media? So again, that depends on who your audience is. Maybe like if you're going to be working in the realm of like social media influencers and trying to say work on their branding, then that's something that you'd obviously want to be on the platform that they're on. So that a lot of this is really just, I don't want to say like last man standing, but like after you've been doing this for a number of years, I've had clients come back from 2 years ago and be like, hey, Katie, I'm ready for the next project now. So if I had given up and moved on to something else, I would have had to refer them to another like freelancer in my network. Because it's also about frequency and recency. So that's a typical advertising term. So frequency and recency. The last time that they hear, it's about how much they hear you and then how often, or like when they hear you and how often. So because I'm still obviously in their, like say the startup world, people are still hearing my name, I'm still top of mind when people are looking for a pitch presentation, you know? The last P, promotion. So make your audience aware of your product or service. And this is where a lot of us get hired to work. A lot of us get hired to do promotion for our clients. Public relations, advertising, direct marketing, email marketing, sales, social media. What are you going to do for yourself? You know, it's one thing to do it for a client. It's much, much, much more difficult to do it for yourself. I'll tell you that, having tried to build my own brand. But what channels are you going to use? Are you going to be on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram? Are you going to be on all of them? Or are you just going to be on one of them? My primary audience is LinkedIn or B2B, so I'm going to be more on LinkedIn, where I'm going to work on curating content and updating posts and whatnot. What message are you conveying to your customers? What's the goal of your promotion if you're actually doing a promotion? So you do this for your clients, now it's time to do it for yourself. And marketing strategy. So if you wanted to do a marketing strategy, which I suggest everyone does, so I'd say this is kind of like once you have your your marketing feet on the ground and your branding up, you're ready to go full sail, swing ahead, put together a calendar. There's publishing tools like Calendly or Hootsuite if you wanted to do like social media publishing. But what that means is for, say, the month of March, every Monday it's going to be like, I'm going to have the theme like Moody Mondays or like Logo Tuesdays or Color Wednesdays. Start thinking about those categories that you want to have every single day of the week. And then create a social post that falls underneath that category. Those categories fit in with what your brand is and what you want to communicate to your clients based on the 4 Ps that you just did. And then you're going to have one blog post once a month. Or a blog post every Friday. So then at the beginning of the month, you're going to write all 4 blog posts and you're going to schedule them to be published every Friday, right? Start automating the process a little bit. This is how people are going to start to find you, and you're, again, building credibility. Once you start doing this, then you can start setting goals. So based on my content calendar and my network that I am building, how can I start to get in front of decision makers? Who are the people that are actually making the decision to hire me? Who is that person within an organization? Is it the CEO? Is it the VP of marketing? How are you going to tell them about your services and the value that you add through your marketing and your promotions? And then, yeah, so plan out your daily contact points if you want to do it daily, weekly, monthly, and then what your yearly goals will be. You could set a yearly goal to have 10,000 Instagram followers by the end of this year. And what can you do to help achieve that? Okay, so we have, it's a little after 7:20 or so. I need 1 volunteer for a client role play. Huh?
Who got one?
This one, okay, perfect. Yeah, we have questions for this too. Okay, so what this may or may not be based on real life. So we're gonna read the background, and then you are the designer, and then I'm going to be the client. And then at the end of this, we can start with you, since you're the designer, to decide how you're going to respond to Mark and what the correct answer is. And there's not just one correct answer. And then we can do discussion and try and figure it out together. So, can you read the background?
I've been working with Mark on and off over the last few months on some small projects. He just reached out and has a new project in mind that's a bit larger, but has a super quick turnaround. You accept because you could use the work, but you also happen to be swamped by other client work at this time. So I'm excited to be working with you on your new project. I really appreciate you thinking of me. What's your timeline?
I was hoping to see the first draft next week, Thursday. Does that work for you?
Well, that's a pretty quick turnaround time, but I'll do my best. Do I read?
Yeah, so next week.
Tuesday evening, you realize you need more time and ask to push back the due date.
I thought you said you were going to have this done by Thursday. This is ridiculous. I need to see something now. Not only are you putting my reputation at risk, but also my clients.
Mark, I told you this is a quick turnaround project and I'm doing my best. I don't think that my request is unreasonable. You've seen successes from our previous projects while working together.
You know, I could have just done this on my own. Send me a refund. How do you reply to Mark?
Well, I think where it kind of went off the rails is like, that's a pretty quick turnaround, but I'll do my best is very much a gray area. So starting within this gray area, it sounds like he took it as a definite. I would say.
I'm still Mark right now, by the way.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mark. Okay,
Keep talking to Mark.
Mark, this is a really rough turnaround time for me. Usually, this kind of thing would probably take me another week or so.
Well, then why didn't you tell me that in the first place?
I really should have told you. I'm just, for the sake of this, I apologize, Mark. I really want to do this work as fast as I can, and I'm trying to do it as fast as I can. And we have a great work relationship, and I want to keep that going.
Yeah, you know what? I know that things worked out in the past, but this is just like, I absolutely had to have this done, and you let me down.
I'm really sorry to hear that. I will PayPal this money back to you.
No, don't give up.
No? I will definitely not PayPal you.
Should he? All right, PayPal, yes, no. All right, who else wants to try and reply? I'm still Mark.
Okay. Mark, I'm more than willing to, bill you for the hours that I spent on the project if that's the route you'd like to go. But
Well, I don't even know how much you worked on this project.
I can provide you the timesheet that I have, the hours worked, and the assets that I've already produced.
What am I going to do with that? It's incomplete.
I'm sorry that if you'd like to continue the project, we can bring that to completion. But you agreed to start this flow of work, so it is my job to follow through.
Okay. Anybody else have anything to add? Yes.
I would say you were hoping to see a draft, and I said I would do my best. You never communicated that you had a tight timeline, that you absolutely needed it by Thursday, and that it would go that down if you didn't.
I said it was due Thursday. You said it was okay.
You said it was a hope. And
I was
I would say, Mark, I really made a mistake, and I want to apologize. And if you could give me till tomorrow, I will work on this thing by 9 a.m.
Well, how do I know you're going to have it done by then? You said it was going to be done today.
Yeah, it's Tuesday.
Thursday. So anyways, there's a couple things. There's a couple things that went wrong here, right? It's not just Mark that's in the wrong. We're also in the wrong. Like, this type of situation happens, where you think that you're going to have time to get something, especially as a student in classes, you think you're going to have time to get something done, and then it comes down to it and you're like up at midnight trying to get it. And that's the challenge of being a freelancer, though. If you're like, I have to be able to pay rent this month, I need this project to come through no matter what, but now you're bogged down with 10 other different clients because you're trying to do too much at once. It just happens. It's business, But then Mark is also being unreasonable, where he was expecting a super quick timeline, and he's kind of being a little bit of a jerk, and saying like, you're now putting my client's reputation at risk. Come on. let's not go there. But there's no right answer. So we had, what did you say? You followed up.
Billing for the hours they've already worked.
Okay, so billing for the hours that you already worked. We all agreed we're not going to refund, right? No. And then apologize, of course, because we're all human. But that being said, you cannot send him a full refund because you've already worked. You've already done hours on this project. It may not be done by this specific deadline, and that's why you apologize and say the best that you can do. I think, this was a situation that happened to me because of it was also not a blue chip client. Because of this, I'm like, I'm sorry, I've already used all the hours for your project. I'm not going to be able to continue this at this time. I'd be willing, I explained to you my situation, and if you were willing to push the deadline back by another day or two, I'd be able to complete this for you, but you're not willing to work with that, so I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do for you right now. And not everything ends happy, and that's okay. Move on to the next client, but I also did it wrong in this project, but then so did Mark. Yes?
Will you take rush projects at a multiple rate?
Yeah, so that's something that you could work into your point system if you wanted to. You could have a rush project charge where you could tack on an extra number of points if it's a rush project. Or you can just tell them, no, I'm booked at this time. I can't take this project, knowing that you're not actually going to be able to do it. Ask them to extend their deadline if possible. Yeah, if you do have the availability to do it, and that means that you're going to be working at 9-10 p.m. at night, then charge them fresh.
How would you suggest like maintaining relationships if you do have like too much of a packed schedule, but like you would like to work with them in the future? Like what do you tend to do to like kind of nurture that?
Well, that would be a very good problem to have, wouldn't it? So you have your content strategy. So I mean, that's obviously nurturing relationships and keeping you frequent and recent in people's minds. If a client is continuing to reach out, then you're like, just tell them flat out, like, I'm booked until the 30th of this month. We can have a conversation as soon as like Monday comes around, the 1st of next month, and see where you're at and where I'm at. Otherwise, it's definitely something that everybody should be doing now is building your strategic partners. So who is, if you have too much work, someone you can refer to. If you get a request for development and you're not a developer, who are you going to refer to? PR, everything. Yes?
So have you ever had a scenario where you were talking to a blue chip client and another client and you had to like choose between choose between the two, which one you were going to focus on, and maybe let one go?
It can get hairy at times. I haven't had the situation where I've had to let one go, but I've definitely worked like 12-hour days before for weeks on end, which is awesome because you end up making a lot of money, but then you have no life and you're like dreaming in Photoshop. But yeah, I mean, if it has to come down to it, then I'd say if they're your blue chip clients, that means you already have contract agreements with them. So you overextended yourself and agreed to do too much work. So you would be responsible for fulfilling your end of the contract. And in that case, you'd probably have to bring in another designer to help you. Yes.
For some of like the first clients you got, like, because I'm assuming like when you first get clients, you're charging like a lower rate. When you start to like up your rate, like what do you do with those like first clients you got? Like, do you start charging them your higher rate, or like how do you go about that?
Yes, someone in my group asked us last week. So that is a perfect opportunity for you to re-present yourself in front of them. You know, like, hey guys, like, it's been a while since we've communicated, who knows how much time. I wanted to let you know what I'm up to. By the way, this is a new way that I'm going about doing business based on my experience, and I've had a lot of success, and, you know, frame it as like a positive, like rebranding, I guess, per se. But yeah, just go back and reintroduce yourself to the clients, especially if it's kind of a stale relationship. You're talking about current clients. How do you raise your
current clients that like current clients that you have, but like, you know, they've like dropped off, or like this is one client I really wanted them, and so I offered them like a stupidly low rate, but they're super cool, but I want to get paid more from them, and I'm just like, I don't know what to do because you are super cool.
Yeah.
Like,
tell them exactly like it is, you know, like, I really enjoy working for you guys. I think you're an awesome client, but as a freelancer, I need to be able to work at a sustainable rate. And right now it's just too low. Because if you're working, okay, so hourly rate, you're not just working at $20 an hour, $30, $50, $100 an hour. Take off 40% of that. And then that's what you're actually taking home. By the way, I was gonna talk about that up front. 40% of what you make needs to be able to be set aside. So think about that in your revenue goal, okay? So, because you have to pay for taxes, you have to pay for subscriptions, you have to pay for transportation, insurance. All of that comes out of your pocket when you are a freelancer, sole proprietor, EIN, right? You are a company, you are an entity. Like, there's expenses that go along with that. That's why you can generally get like contract to hire positions, and that'll generally be a lower hourly rate because there's guaranteed work for that period of time, or salary positions. But then as a freelancer, you get to charge a lot more. You have to charge a lot more in order for it to be sustainable. But then the benefit of companies hiring freelancers then is that they don't have the commitment of hiring a full-time employee where they then have to provide benefits and desks and computers and all that stuff. Yeah. Okay.
I just wanted to add to that you get more respect.
Yes.
So there's a perception that, you know, high quality and higher rate.
Yep. Yep, the value behind what you're providing, people take you as seriously as you take yourself. So if you walk in and you haven't showered in 3 days and you look like a like you've been working from home, then don't walk into a client meeting looking like that. Sorry.
Do you have any rules of thumb for over time? How big of a jump is big?
Yeah, I mean, that's just up to you and how you want to approach that. I would say I challenged my group to double their pricing by the end of this year. Yeah. But in order to do that, you have to make sure you have the value behind it. So I wouldn't put like if you have current clients, I'd probably do it like gradually, and so you don't like sticker shock them. Otherwise, how do you know when you're charging too much? Nobody in my group can answer because they know this. When what?
You stop getting clients.
Yeah, when people stop paying you. It's easy. So if you find yourself in a situation where no one's hiring you anymore, then maybe you should probably rethink what you're selling or how you're selling it. Right.
So very related, kind of the last 3 questions, but I have sort of a yearly contract with the client, which is it's an hourly contract, so it's sort of like there's not an actual retainer, but we have anyways. I have a list of things I have to do every month for him, so it's like both sides. Anyways, but I was just thinking, like, do you do that where it's like a year retainer, and then every year then you can think about your price, or how do you up it when it's not so project based or package based, so it's more retainer based?
So that depend on your contract. I would write that in your contract, and this is stuff that you learn as you do it. Like nothing's perfect the first time you do it. So next time you guys are talking about your contract, add that in that you're going to have you can either add that in like that you're going to have either a conversation, or you could set what your new rate will be after 1 year.
So just that like they'll increase the percentage every year?
Sure, I think that'd be perfectly acceptable. I think they'd look at that and not even bat an eye.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, so I'm a little bit confused by this points pricing system. So
yes,
it's basically based on charging more for different types of services. So it's like if you would say you're doing like a branding project, if you're doing like specifically like branding, then you charge one thing for the amount of hours worked towards that. Or if you're doing like coding, then it would be different.
Yeah. All right. So that's up to you to set. I know it takes me more time to develop a website than it does to do a branding and identity. So inherently, my website is going to cost more than my branding and identity package would. But what I want you guys to start thinking about as you're defining all of your services is how can you, so it's not just logo design, they're also getting a piece of collateral with it. That's the value add. How do you start thinking about that type of stuff that you can do for yourself? It's not just a pitch presentation, it's a consultation on pitch flow based on my experience of helping startups get $50 million. Other questions? Yeah.
So you talked about your packages a bit. Do you offer any little like a la carte type things? Like, have you ever gotten like weird requests that haven't really fit into any of your packages, and how do you address those? Do you just say no?
So generally, I would say no. I get asked a lot, well, what's my minimum? Where I don't know. I hate those types of projects because then you get sucked in doing a project like the small, unrecurring project, low value, low price. So it's not where I want to focus my time and effort. If you do too many of those, you don't have enough time to onboard your blue chips, to find those blue chips. What you should be doing if you're stuck in this project cycle is be working on how to market yourself and target clients that would be your blue chips. So it may seem achievable. It's like, yes, I can do that, but you also have to learn when to say no, which can be hard, especially when you're just starting. But you learn as you go too.
How are you finding your new clients? Are you just being like, hey, like I've
walked past your shop and I realized like you could use some help. Like I do that and I'm like, that sounds really good.
There's a tactful way to do that,
Yes.
and then there's not. So, so that marketing technique, you kind of have to do that backwards, to reverse it. How do you create a curated piece of content or a freebie or something that would target that audience that they would find really valuable? Because then what are they going to do? They're going to sign up online or like download your PDF from your website. Now you have their email and contact information so you can set up a call and then ask them, so like if you have those ideas, those are really good ideas. Just figure out how to spin them into marketing pieces to get those as clients. Do you follow?
Yes.
Okay. There's another question. Yeah.
How, if you presented a ton of great content and you keep saying learn as you go, how much of this do you think you can just apply as practice before learning it, and how much of it do you feel like the only way you really made it into the content that you created was by trial and error?
So this is a system that works. I know that. My previous group members know that. Hopefully my group will learn that soon. I know that this works. Having packages works. Using a point system works. What the tasks and services involved in each package, whether or not that works, that can be changed. That always changes. In fact, I've gone back and probably updated my packages 3 times since I first came out with this a couple years ago. So it's all about like learning what works or what you should add in the contracts, how you should invoice, and seeing what works for you. So there's no real, like as far as like the business of things go, like a set in stone process for everyone, especially as a freelancer, because it's a big world, and you got to figure out how, like, what can I hire you or what can I pay you to do for me right now? Like start from there. Other questions? All right, so everyone has some homework. But first of all, you get some freebies, which I will email. I can't email out or share in the Slack channel. So 2-minute pitch worksheet. If you don't have your pitch prepared, everyone needs to have it prepared. The 4 Ps of marketing worksheet, I want you to think of yourself as a company. You're not just a freelancer begging for project by project work. You are a company. You are the real deal. And I want you to start framing yourself as that just by answering some of these questions, or at least all that you can from the worksheet. And then I have a list of marketing resources if that's something that is of value to you, if you wanted to start, say, marketing towards clients. And then homework. So everyone has homework as well. So everyone needs to fill out the 2-minute pitch presentation. I want everyone to do step 1 of a PointBook, so defining your services. So write detailed descriptions. This is just in a spreadsheet. Detailed descriptions, approximate time to complete each. And then once you have that, then you can move on to the next steps for point booking. And then set up your project management process if you don't already have one in place. I know if you have agency experience, you've gotten to see firsthand what it means to actually manage a project. Like there are full-time roles of many, many, many people that do this full-time. So like keep that in mind too when you're trying to evaluate what your ideal hourly rate is. So for the number of hours per month that you're going to work, because it's impossible, I'm saying this loosely, it's impossible to work 40 hours a week as a freelancer on your own, because you're spending so much other time managing your projects, onboarding clients, doing your social, generating your own content, because you are a business. There's a lot of work that goes into it. But I want you to have a set process set in place, because this is also going to go in your proposal, your 10-minute proposal. And then real quick shout out to PointBook. So this is what I'm hopefully going to be launching in the next few weeks. So it's going to be a course on PointBook itself. So how to productize your services and go through those steps that that I presented on just a little bit today. So AIGA is getting a special code. So if you guys go to pointbook.io and sign up for pre-enrollment, enter the code AIGA. So then once it launches, then you guys will get something sweet. Cool. And then links for everyone else. So I'm going to share this presentation so you guys will have all of this too. But otherwise, yay. Did that in record time.
That was awesome.
Yes, we got a lot of work to do though.
Holy smokes. Really good information.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
What was it?
Oh, yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, so we still have we have like 20 minutes left, so ask away.
Just like the project management side of things, do you technically then not bill your clients for your project management?
So I would say that I have that baked into my pricing, because it would be a crazy invoice then if I were to keep track of 10 minutes for this email, 15 minutes for this, and then and how that, like, a lot of that, like, it's almost yeah, it's baked into my pricing. And then for I do have in the task list one point for the next round of edits, and then half a point for the next meeting. So I do assign points to meetings, usually, depending on how long it is too.
Yeah, some of the work I do is strictly project management.
Yeah.
So then I'm just trying to think through.
Oh yeah. Well,
how you would do that.
you could create a special project management package. That'll be interesting. How would that look? Huh. Well, list out all of your product management services.
Yeah.
Start from there. That'd be so cool. Yeah.
I'm sure you have this like more down, but like when you're starting out, I think it's really easy to underestimate how much time something will take you. So say you're like, that'll be 3 points, and then it turns out to be like 12 of your own time.
Yeah.
Do you usually like ask for it, or do you kind of like commit to that like original price because of what you originally
So it depends on what it is. I think that's a lot easier when it comes to design versus if you're looking into something for development. If you're looking into something for development and say it's updating an antiquated WordPress website that you know should really only take an hour's worth of your time, and it ends up taking 12, then after a while you should start to be able to see when that's going to happen. So then you can kind of like raise a red flag and call the client and be like, look, so I thought this is only going to take an hour. There's some major issues going on right now, and we're going to have to allocate some more time to this. And I think you're going to actually have to purchase more points in order for me to get this done. This is what I need to be able to do. This is what I need from you in order to be able to get this done. And I estimate it's going to take an extra 5 points. I mean, it's all about managing their expectations and yours too, you know, because you're in this to make money too. Yes.
You said that you had kind of a false start, so to speak, in
Uh-huh.
2013.
Yeah.
What was the catalyst, or what changed for you to jump back in and have the courage to do that and try again?
So I showed my group my career path. No career path is like strictly a ladder. Everything's organic. And then at different points in different careers, you face different fear paradoxes. And what are you going to do to overcome each of those situations? Are you going to ski down the hill, or are you going to call it quits? And so I ended up calling it quits after a while. It just wasn't working. So I was going to freelance. I had just finished being a marketing manager at a company called SMS Assist. And they are now one of the new unicorns in town, so $1 billion startup. So I like to think that I had something to do to help them get to that place. And so 2013 was also, 1871 was founded in 2012. So I went to go work at 1871 thinking like, this is great. Like I can apply some of my marketing services to bootstrap startups that are just starting, thinking that it'd be a no-brainer. Of course they need marketing services. And this just shows how much the design industry has changed in the last couple of years, and even the startup scene in Chicago. Every conversation that I was having with startups clients at that time, either went something along the lines of like, yeah, you know, I think I'm just gonna have my developer design my website, or I think I can just do that myself, or I'll just use like logo design, I'll use like Fiverr.com or whatever it is, or it was Elance, I don't know, and so the problem was people weren't understanding the value of the services that I was providing, and I wasn't either, and I was selling myself too short, and because of that, I couldn't get enough clients, and I was stuck in the project loop. Things weren't working, and so I went and I worked at the Tribune for a couple of years as an art director after that. So it didn't work, and I agreed that it didn't work, so I went and worked full time. And then while I was working full time, I took those 2 years to build my network, to continue to build my network. And during that time, so from 2013 to 2015, that's when startups in Chicago started getting more funding. So more funding means more money. And also them understanding that's also the time that people were really starting to understand the value of really good user experience design. And so when I left the Tribune in 2015, that's when startups were finally understanding what it was that I was trying to do for them. And so it was a little bit easier, and I had my network and a little bit more wind beneath my wings in order to kind of hit the ground running. And then it took me a little while to figure out my point system and how I do business today, and some iterations behind that. So yeah. Any other questions?
That's really good, Katie. Thank you.
Yay.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys.
You rock.
You guys rock.
So good.
So professional.
No, seriously. This is why this is your third time doing this.
I know, right?
Hey
guys.
Yeah,
All
thanks,
right,
guys.
let's-
Thanks for coming.
We still have
and
8 viewers on.
Woo, yeah. Right. Thank you, Karen and Melody, for helping out. Tribeca, Katie.
Hey, guys.
Awesome. Megan, thank you.